Not
I
me.
don't mind at all.
Okay, so I've just hit it there because I think it'll be things to put aside later. Uh, While I've got you here, let me show you a couple of little tricks. Uh, Jim,
Hey,
welcome.
Jim.
First of all, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a whole bunch of little icons. And what you should do is click on participants and click on chat one time each. If you don't see chat, it's under more with 3 dots over on the right. Okay, once you've done that, you get 2 white boxes that show up in the middle of your screen and are in the way. So you go up to the top right-hand corner of the black box and you see the word view. Click on the word view, then click on gallery and click on exit full screen. If you do that, you'll have the participant chat box off to the side. Is everybody following me so far?
Yep.
So you want me to, do
I
I
think
click
so.
on?
I have 6 pictures in front of me.
You have 6 pictures in front of you, but on the right-hand side, if you've done what I just said, you should have a list of the participants, the people, and then you should have a box chat. And the interesting thing about chat, down there, you see the word everyone. You can identify one person like Charlie, and you can send him a private message and say, hey, call me later or whatever. That's a nice feature, but you also see who's there, and that's also useful. So this is a nice way of having your control panel set up. And I'm going to show you one more thing here. Under the more, the 3 dot more there's something called breakout rooms. And I've set it up so anybody can go to any breakout room. Everybody here is not assigned to the present time. There's a help desk, chat room 1, chat room 2, and the word join. If you want to join the chat room, you open up the breakout rooms, you decide which one you want to go to, and you go there. There's no point in going there when nobody else is there, though. So, for example, if Charlie and Jim want to have a private chat, they can send a message to each other and say, I'll meet you in chat room 2. If somebody comes on here and has a problem with their computer, I will probably tell them to go to chat room, to the help desk, and I'll leave here and I'll go help them out while you guys continue the conversation. So that's the plan. And for those who came in a little bit late, I'm recording this session so that we can put it up on the internet, and anybody who doesn't show up can see it. Jim, you're looking good in front of the mountain, but you're faking it. So what's the story?
That's the called Wangshan, which is the Yellow Mountains in China.
Okay. But your lips don't move.
No, they don't. No, it's not live. I'm here actually in a tactical shooting class, so I may have to leave in a bit. But I figured I'd break away from it and at least join in for a little bit and say
Wow.
hi to everybody.
I'm glad you did.
I'm sorry it's a picture like that because I'm trying to picture the tall guy with some hair. You guys were all at Dong Duck, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there, but I wasn't ever assigned. I was with the Mike Force from early February of 1970 through November. Well, actually, no, I went to A102 in Tinfook for my last 2 months. But the rest of the time was the Mike Force, and I spent a lot of time at A109 by the river, the Songvujia River.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you there with the Mike Force with Barry Archer and Bob Cerniak?
Absolutely. Bob and I talk like every Veterans Day, and I contemplated calling him yesterday to see if he could pull this off, but I guess he's as big a computer retard as I am.
At least you're on.
Oh, this was yesterday was quite frustrating from about 9:40 to a little after noon before I ever got a picture. And today the same crapola started, and I think it's a miracle I can see people from half a century ago. It's yeah,
Well, it's a time machine we've got here that makes it happen.
yeah. Remember when we were terribly thin?
Oh, hell yeah.
You
You know,
make it
this,
sound like an archaeology conference.
all I know is my Botox shots are causing me to bloat up a little bit here, so.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Jim.
So has anybody done anything really special? Met the president, gone into outer space? Built a big tree house?
We all survived the Vietnam War.
Yeah, yeah. My
That's pretty
God.
special.
I really wish this camera were portable and I could take you out to my backyard. I planted these trees 40 years ago, and I'm getting ready to do the tree house for my grandchildren in it. We're beginning with the north tower and then progressing through the rest of it. I think the treehouse needs a bathroom with a flush toilet and a kitchen and all the essentials that a true treehouse should have.
I can come out with explosives and take those trees down for a good LZ.
I got very, very good at that. I understand. Yes. These are the kind of trees that it take a fair bit of C4 to take them down.
How is Bob Cernak doing? Is he still in Buffalo?
He's still
Yes, he is.
there.
Yeah.
He's doing very well. He had a total knee replacement, I think, mid last year, and has done very, very well on it. He's up and about and everything. When he was at Dog Duck, he was 5'8" tall, and now he's 5'4". And well, of course, he's got a lot of gray hair, but he's got a lot more hair than most of us, so shut my face.
I probably haven't seen him since like 2002. At when they had the convention at Fort Bragg. I think it was that the 50th anniversary?
I think that's the last time we showed up at a convention.
Yeah. Yeah. But anybody know how Bila's doing?
How, who is?
Greg Bila?
Yeah, I do actually. He just had another surgery and he's having to take pain pills. It's for his back. And he's in pretty bad shape with his back, actually.
Mm. Okay.
I talked to him a few days ago, and Bob Cerniak keeps in touch with him too. And
In the middle of my screen, is that Charlie? Aha. What part of California are you in?
I'm just outside of San Diego.
Aha.
I'm keeping the hordes away from the border.
Did anybody know a medic named Norton who came from Thongduck?
yes, I know him. Yeah,
How's he doing? Is he alive?
I tried to track him down when we were trying to track down former people with A109, and we started with the team I had. And I never was able to track them down, except after I got out of the hospital about a year, I got medevaced out. I was living in California, and lo and behold, him and Holland, Tim Holland, came to the same place I was living, condo apartments. And they were going to what is now Cal State Northridge. And they went there. So we saw each other at least every week for about a year.
Yeah, I ran into Norton at, I think Cal State Northridge. And I think a guy who was at Thong Duck, I think his last name was Green. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
At,
Green. Yeah.
At Pierce College. I just don't run into many people, and generally speaking, don't even talk about too much of what I did or what happened.
Tim Holland is dead, as well as Chief Hernessy. Adamski as well. And we lost a lot of guys after they got out, and they didn't die in combat. They, just illnesses, Agent Orange type stuff, or accidents.
So Adamski is not alive?
No, he's deceased. Yeah. And Diary Depp, if my counterpart at the camp, he went on to be a general, and he died fighting the NVA sometime, I think, in 73, 74 timeframe.
I put up the web page, which is updated now, so you can see the status of all the people there. And the other thing you can do is down here at the bottom. You click and there's a 1/50,000 map for your AO.
Oh yeah, nice, Stephen.
So
Hey, Steve,
that's a new feature. Yeah.
what is the DNH? I see for John Roden, he's listed.
Died non-hostile.
Died what?
Non-hostile.
Oh, okay.
Helicopter crash or some accident or whatever. I don't know individually what that particularly refers to, but each case is different.
Well, I'll say this is Charlie talking. My wife and I, we went to Vietnam in 2015. And I had a free day on this tour, so I hired a cab driver, and he took me out to Thon Duc. And just a second. Anyway, went out there, and there was all sorts of improvements as far as power lines coming in, and everybody seems to have a satellite dish on their house, and the roads have been paved over. So the villages down below Thon Duc have all expanded out. The old assault airstrip that used to be just across the river from the camp, that's covered in structures now. And the camp itself, they treat that hilltop like some sacred burial ground up there. There is nothing up there. There's no structures other than a big war memorial that they put up there. But you would think, I mean, if it was California, there'd be condos up on that hill right now. You go up there and you can still see evidence of the camp as far as old trench lines and some of the PCPs up there and evidence of bunkers. They blew up most of those bunkers, but there's still a couple bunkers that are pretty well still intact. And the whole hilltop is just covered in brush and some trees, but it's a lot of scrub up there. But you can walk around there. Once I found one bunker, I knew where I was. I could find everything else, but I couldn't find evidence of that water reservoir though. I was looking for it there, that swimming pool that we used to have up there. But yeah, it's an interesting place. I'm glad I went back, but it's still a great view up there. As soon as you get into that valley, as soon as that cab entered into the valley, I knew where I was. Those skylines do not change in that valley.
Virgil, is that you down there? Well, Carter,
Yeah, it's Pat Carr.
say Pat?
Yeah, it's Pat Carr.
Okay.
So
Hey,
anyway,
Charlie,
just want to say the place is still there, and you know, and the old I guess the old road bridge is still across the river. They got a newer bridge that they put in, much improved bridge, but it's nice.
Can you guys see that in the middle on top?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
Robert Cerniak today, or about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I spoke to his wife. He's out on a supply run. She said as soon as he comes back, she'll set him up and have him up here.
Okay.
hey, Charlie, this
Yes.
is Jim.
Yeah. Jim.
That memorial is dedicated to the NVA that lost their lives.
Yep.
And I told Greg and Bob before that we were very happy to have made the contribution
Well,
to that.
I got to tell you, that memorial it's about where it's between where our the American perimeter was and the helicopter pad was. So it's
Yeah.
kind of right where the LLDB were. And it's about the size of a basketball court. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of a nice looking memorial, but you look at it and I think on top is these three statues. There's always the heroic soldier with the flag, and then there's some buxom female on it. I don't remember buxom females, but there's one on there, and then there's looks like a farmer with a AK in his hand. But it probably came out of like an East German memorial catalog, and you just kind of pick out what kind of memorial you want, and they'll send it to you. But and then you're right, there's plaques, these giant plaques. I guess they're about, if I had to guess, they're about 6 feet tall, and there's 3 or 4 of them, and they got names on there of every Vietnamese that was killed in and about Thon Duc during the war. And I don't know how many names are on there, but there's over a couple thousand names on these plaques. And I'm looking at the names, and next to the names is the year they died. And the earliest ones were like back in the late 40s. So I'm going, well, we didn't kill them. The French probably killed those guys, you know. So it's like everybody that I don't know who was maintaining the records of all the KIA in that area. And tell you the truth, it almost looks like it came out of the yellow, you know, some phone book. But there's a lot of names on there. So I can't verify if it's they're legitimate names, but yeah, it's you can go online and see the memorial. In fact, they got, every once in a while, the Vietnamese have these celebrations up there at the memorial, and they put it on YouTube. So it's interesting.
Speaking of memorials, has anybody seen anything about Healy? Michael Healy?
I know Michael Healy.
Pastor
Oh, which Michael Healy?
The one who
Iron-
was,
Iron Mike.
The general?
Yeah.
yes, but he was a colonel when when I was there.
Mhm.
It's a fifth group commander.
On April the 7th, I was at my lock and it had been overrun that night, and it was that morning. And we had been around the camp, but not in the camp when it was overrun. And we hadn't been in an A-team or any friendly camp for close to a month. Colonel Healy dressed me down that day, just went overboard about my beard and how I should shave. And I had two thoughts in my head. One was, you chicken shit twerp. But the other thought was, I've just turned 20 and shaving had not been a big thing for me, you know, and just the fact that somebody was dressing me down for not shaving, I thought, well, I guess finally I'm an adult, whether I graduated Special Forces medical training or not, you know, finally I was accepted. Anyway, he was a weird guy, Healy. At least I thought so.
As the wise bearded one says.
You know,
You know, a lot of, Steve, a lot of these gentlemen here, I don't know, you know.
Well, why don't you go around to introduce yourself?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. My name's Charlie Einot. I joined the Army in 1964, did 1 year in the 82nd. Before volunteering for Special Forces, went through training group in 66. And from there, I was assigned to the 6th group at Fort Bragg, was there 1 year. And in the, I think it was November, end of November of 67, I got orders for 5th Group, Vietnam, and was assigned to A109 at Don Duck. Was there maybe 3 months before I got wounded in one of the convoys that Colonel Shungle reinstituted from Da Nang to the camps. He wanted to open the roads. So he started running weekly convoys to and from Da Nang. Anyway, the first 2 probably got through okay, and I was on the 3rd or 4th convoy, and that one got ambushed. So I went to Okinawa, recovered, came back, and they sent me to A106 at Bateau. And I finished out my tour, and I was out processing in Nha Trang, and I remember the S1 saying, Sergeant, we don't have any orders for you. And then he said to me, he said something the Army has never said to me, which was, where would you like to go? And I says, at that time, I was a young guy. I'd never been to Europe. And I had heard all these stories about 10th Group at Bat Tolz. I said, I want to go to 10th Group. He says, okay, come back tomorrow. We'll have orders for you. So the next day I went back. I was so elated. And he says, okay, we got your orders. On January 3rd, you report to Fort Devens. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I says, where? He goes, Fort Devens. I says, where in the hell is that? I'd never heard of Fort Devens. He says, it's in Massachusetts. I said, I thought I was going to 10th group in Bad Tolls. And he goes, oh, no, no, no. They came back to Conus 3 months ago, you know. And I said, Jesus, you know. So anyway, in January of 1969, I was trying to fight frostbite in some cold weather exercise in outside of Fort Devens. But so I did 1 year in 10th group and got out in January of 70, came home to San Diego and eventually went into law enforcement, did 34 years, retired in 2005. And here I am. So, and I've known Steve there since I know exactly 1989 when they had the convention in San Diego, the last convention we had, SFA convention. So he still looks the same too. That's the scary part.
Your eyes must have trouble.
You think so?
Hey, Steve,
Right.
Jim Duffy. I'll go ahead and I'll make it short. I arrived at Vietnam in 1969, got assigned to A109 in February of 70. Went on some operations, and then we had the siege. And I got medevac 2 weeks after the siege. Spent about a year in the hospital. And that was my time there. Interesting story about Bob Cerniak. He was the last man standing in Thong Duc. And I mean, the last man. They had switched over to the Rangers and the Vietnamese as well, Vietnamese Rangers. But he was left there and finally got back to Da Nang, went to C Company and was totally empty. Nobody there at all. So he walked down to CCN and some master sergeant, I believe it was took him in, fed him, and got him processed out back to the United States. But he definitely was the last guy standing at Thong Duc. That's it. Thank you.
Anyway, I'm Ed Mosley. I was at Thon Duc for a very short period of time. I think probably about 30 days, maybe a little longer. In '68, I got there after being on launch site in Mylock with CNC. And I got pulled down to Da Nang and they said, you got a choice. They're going to put you in with a bunch of leg engineers clearing mines, or you can go to 109. And I said, well, 109 sounds good to me. Clearing mines is not something I was real happy about thinking on. And that didn't last long. They were under siege in September. And I tripped an ambush and got medevaced on the 3rd. It was a very screwy situation there. And I was curious if anybody here or knew of anybody that was actually in Thong Duc in that September, October timeframe of '68.
Hey, Steve, I'm back.
I'll chime in there. I happen to be one of the medics, myself and Gary Silver. And we were medevacing some CIDG out on the 3rd of October, '68. And cross the river from the tennis court. Good Morning Charlie was out there, and I heard the first round take off from the tube. The second round got our latrine, and the third round I was screaming at Gary to get down because I knew where it was going, and it got both of us. And got the patients also. And then because of the incoming, the medevacs couldn't get in. And Mike Force was fighting its way into our location. They had just cleared the village down at the bottom of the hill. And Gary Silver was, he was really bad. He had gotten most of the blast on the left side of his body. And we were almost out of medical supplies, and I had what I consider a large chunk of metal protruding from my right thigh. And I was wearing a helmet, but I got some shrapnel in my right rear shoulder and took it up and down my arm and my right leg. And it was a very traumatic time as far as I'm concerned. And I went to Japan. In fact, this when Steve was arranging this, I asked him about Gary Silver. And he said, try a town in Wisconsin. And I don't think it's the right Gary.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like I must have been medevac just before that crap hit the fan. It was October 3rd, and something really bizarre happened because I was the only wounded one in the group wounded. There was a lieutenant dragged me off the hill, but the FAC brought in fast movers right on top of us. You remember anything about that?
No, I don't. I know we laid out there, they drug us back into the medical bunker past where the commo radio operator was, and it was dark when they finally got a chopper into us to get us out. But I think one of the Mike Force medics had been wounded also at that time. And I know my or one of the replacements Sikh team sent out with Scott Herbert. And I understand the doctor went out with him, and it was a Dr. Kingus from the C team. But
Hey, John,
Like I
when
say,
you were the medic out there, was John Vincent still out there? He was a medic?
no, there was just Gary and I. And let's see. Art Carmody, who was on the screen earlier, was a radio operator. Rich Hall was the acting team sergeant. Ralph Loft had been wounded a couple months before. The team leader was Glenn Denning. Bob Waller was the XO. We had one guy who had been wounded southwest of the camp on the 1st. And myself and Captain Glendenning went out to retrieve him. But the medevac got in before we reached his location. So
I think a couple of guys that I served with were still there during that siege. Paul Hoffman.
yes, Paul was there.
And Len Grice.
Yes, Greitz was there.
I'm I'm in contact with Len Grice and Paul Hoffman and number of guys that I served with at A109, John Vincent, the medic. Ralph Loff is still alive in Fayetteville.
Yep.
So
Well,
I talk to him all the time.
They did away with they used to have the Thursday morning breakfasts. And that sort of just faded away, I guess, like old military guys, they just fade away.
Hey, John, what year was the seizure? I came in late.
Uh, well, actually, I think if I remember correctly, it started on the 28th of September and went on till about, because there was still fighting going on the 5th of October.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest action was the 28th through the 30th, and then I bought the farm on the 3rd.
I think the Marines eventually came in and lifted that siege, or they ran an operation up in the ridges there and Operation, I think it was Maui Peak, wasn't it, Steve? Do you remember?
Yes, it was Maui Peak. We had I guess it was their radio operator relay site was using us as a relay point back into the 3rd MAV. And I don't know whatever happened to those guys up there, because I know Sir Charles, and I say that with respect, because they were sure determined to get that place.
I have visions of some Zoom conference going on in Hanoi right now. There's like about 20 guys, all NVA, talking about bombs.
Oh,
Now, let me,
Mike Booth, what was your MOS?
who?
Mike Booth,
Oh,
what was,
I was a medic.
were you preventive medicine at first?
I was both. Yeah, when I went through what they did, I never understood the thought pattern behind it. But apparently, when we finished the medic course and we're waiting our assignments, they took 7 of us and sent us back to Fort Sam Houston to go through the preventive medicine course because the SF, they couldn't get any preventive medicine people to volunteer to be with 5th group. So that was basically the reason they sent some of us back through to go through the preventive medicine course.
Did you know Richard Lesh, Dick Lesh?
The name doesn't sound familiar, but that doesn't mean anything at my age.
Did you spend any time at the C team in Da Nang?
Yeah, I was at the C team in Da Nang. Yeah. I was there with a number of other guys, and some of them went to other places. Like some went to I called him our mail clerk, Larry Chapman, and he was the mail clerk for us for a while, and then he went to CCN.
Where are you now, geographically speaking?
Geographically, I'm in Oregon, but I won't be here very long. It's kind of a long story, and I don't want to bore a lot of you, but I
Just say, Mike, you're in the witness protection program, right?
no, well, almost kind of. But when I retired from the Army, I went to work for the U.S. State Department, Diplomatic Security Service. And I was with them for a while. And then they asked me to go to work for the United Nations Security Service. So I went to the United Nations and I retired from the United Nations. And now I do consulting work, private security. And I was telling Steve, I have a home I'm actually going to be moving there as soon as I can get clearance for my pets from the vet, to move them to England and move into my home in England I have.
Are you from England?
No, although according to my sister, I have, we have a strong ancestral ties to England, but I started working with the British Army quite a bit. And I bought some property there back in the late 70s. And over the years, I developed that. And I have an interest in World War I and World War II battle sites. I did the Civil War here when I was, of course, obviously you guys know North Carolina. And I did the Civil War sites in North Carolina and Virginia and all up through there. So I finished that. Now I'm, of course, with the COVID thing, it's kind of shamble things, but I want to do the battlefield sites in Europe and England and throughout that area there for World War I and World War II. And it's more convenient for me to be in England than to be here. I grew up here in Oregon. I was born and raised here.
You're going to be a Tory. You're going to be a Tory, Mike.
Well, they're my English friends are trying to get me to get my dual citizenship, and my Scottish friends say they'll disown me if I do.
Before we get off here, let me show you something I think was pretty interesting. Here's a paragraph from a document I'm working on right now. And this is from 1974. So Thang Duc was still a border ranger camp in existence at that time. And they're talking about being able to airdrop supplies to Thang Duc in the case of a siege. But what they point out, which I didn't realize until I saw this in writing, the location of Thang Duc was such that they'd be able to shell Da Nang with 130 millimeter rockets from Thang Duc. I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah.
So anyway, that little piece of information is there for your.
Well, they always considered Thang Duc like the gateway to Da Nang.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
That valley just opened up into.
That's why Charlie's running convoys. Getting
Steve, excuse me, Steve. If you can get in touch with John Early, Tricky Misfit,
Yeah,
he can probably give you some information about the airdrop and some of the fuse cutters that they were using back then.
yeah. Well, this is just an incidental piece of my reading on what I'm working on now, dealing with 74. And the fact that it mentioned Thang Duc at that time, I thought would be interesting to you because most of us really had no expectation of the SF camps having any existence much longer after we left. It's really surprising how many camps survived and what they did in the 73, 72, 73, 74 timeframe. They were there. They were, the LLDB had been ripping them off, and you would have thought they would have replaced the LLDB with somebody else when they turned them over. They didn't. The same guys were there, but those guys were now dependent on the CIDG for their life, for their lives. So ripping them off was not really in their best interest. And
Well,
when they took away the high command, which is what they ended up doing, that was the major effect of changing this to border rangers. The Vietnamese high command was gone. And the B and C detachments were also gone. So all the A detachments were independent ranger battalions. And that took away a lot of the incentive or the necessity to rip off the troops because they didn't have to pay off the next higher headquarters.
well, in 73 and 74, I was in Berlin, and I had access to some materials that were indicating that there were armed rebel groups robbing buses and tourists using enemy weapons. So evidently, at least in my opinion, there was still existent then.
73, 74, 83, 84.
73, 74.
South Vietnamese government was still existing.
Well, these were armed bandits, but they were existing and using enemy weapons. And that's just what the report said, because I was in Berlin. I don't, I can't speak factually. I was just reading some documents that were coming across where I was located.
I'm just
I
curious,
remember-
question to the general group. Everybody here was at Thong Duck, everybody on this screen. How did you get there? Or at least, how did you get there the first time?
Hey, Anthony,
Well,
Anthony, you were there at the same time I was, weren't you, or close to it?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Now, what did you do?
I was the medic on the Mike Force from February 2nd of 1970 to the end of the Mike Force.
Uh-huh.
And
I
at
thought
the-
I thought I recognized your name and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you as a preventive medicine specialist.
Right. That's the slot they had for me in the C team. Because like I alluded to before, nope, they couldn't get a preventive medicine person to go to the 5th group. That's why they dual headed. There was actually I think another guy. No, he went. I think he went up to CNC also, and he went that way. It's because 2 of us of the 7 that had dual headed. 2 of us.
Did you know
went up
Leo
to-
King?
Leo King?
Yeah, he went to CCN.
No, I didn't know him. Larry Chapman, I don't know if you knew Larry. He was our mailman there in the C team. He went to CCN. But how I got to Thong Duck was, as you know, the siege, and that started in May on my well, not on my birthday, but I went on my birthday out to Thong Duck. That's how I got out to Thong Duck. A great birthday present.
well,
You
How
know,
did you get there, Ed?
I was, like I said, in transit to Da Nang, and they needed a warm body for fill an intel slot. And so,
But physically, how did you get there? You didn't take a cab.
no, I got there by helo. I
Helo.
don't know that I don't think they could have got there on the highway. I don't think that was feasible at that point. I think the only way in and out was air.
all I remember spiraling down, flying over in a Caribou, and it went into a steep dive spiral, and I thought we were crashing. I thought we'd been shot down, but that was just the way they approached that airstrip out there.
I think to call it an airstrip was very liberal. I think too that when you were talking about dead there, at least twice people have been camped on that airstrip and dug a little bit and come up with full human skeletons. And you know, your memory goes bad. I thought one of them was Cerniak picking it up, but no, he said it wasn't him. Skeletons out there. My first time there was in a C-123 with the Mike Force in early February. And it was Cerniak's first combat operation and mine. I had been in country since October of 69, but I was at the 95th Evac Hospital in Da Nang because my brother was stationed right next door, and they didn't want me with the, it was my first military's betrayal. I volunteered to go as a special forces medic, and they sent me to the Big Red One out of Lai K.
I hope you shaved before you left.
Yeah, actually, there wasn't much to shave in those days. And even in the Big Red One, I wore my beret. Even when I was at the 95th Evac in Da Nang, I wore my beret. And I wore it until a colonel took me aside and she said,
Gee,
you know, I really don't think you should be wearing that tam here.
damn.
And her name was Farabee. She was an Army nurse, a colonel. And I said, yes, ma'am, I will comply. And I never wore headgear again.
I can tell you were a management nightmare, Anthony.
In Anthony's behalf, as I remember, of course, my memory's really clouded as age has gone on. I think Anthony was a very fine person.
Anthony, does that guy owe you money?
Well,
So much for
you know, there
cloudiness.
was it was interesting. Anytime we had any kind of party at the C team and some officer was paying, of course, we drank like fish. And Cerniak had jumped out of a guard tower one night, and they were so impressed, one, that the Nung guards hadn't shot him, and two, that he showed them he was airborne and actually took the leap. And everybody blamed it on me, and I was even dressed down for it the next day. And like an hour later, Cerniak comes limping into the mess hall, and everybody knew what had happened. But that was how we got the Thong Duck, our first C-123 flight. And we had both been shown around the C team and said, you know, take a few days, get oriented, we'll get your shit together. And 20 minutes later, they said, pack your gear, we're going. And I said, we don't have any of this, that, and the other. And they told me and Cerniak right then and there, don't worry, we'll take it from the dead. And off we went to Thong Duck. And that was my intro. And I had been back there many, many times while you were under siege, while somebody's hooch got hit by a 122 millimeter rocket while I was there. I mean, right in the hooch, but whoever lived there wasn't inside at the time.
You know,
But it was
that affects real estate prices, you know.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
a scary time.
Well, when they were were you on any of the airdrops, Anthony? That dropped the ammunition and supplies in?
Oh yeah, many times.
Yeah, when we got a lot of the supplies, the drops, I always cussed. Well, not just me, but Dave Cook, the weapons guy, said, Mike, you have to go get the stuff in the wire because you're the smallest guy here. So I'd have to ferret through the barbed wire and get the cases of the ammo and stuff. Yeah,
Well,
that was.
Was
now that I think
anybody,
back on it, it was only fair to have the wiry guy go into the barbed
Oh yeah,
wire.
yeah. Speak up now.
Hey,
is
this
there
is Jim.
anybody, is there anybody here that remembers Sergeant Major Clyde, the Wonder Horse?
Oh, the horse. I heard stories about the horse. But the horse wasn't around when I was out there.
Me neither.
He eventually got killed out there by shrapnel.
Yeah, they had pictures of in the team house of the horse.
Well,
Brigadier Hodge did not like
what's that?
Sergeant Major Clyde.
You want to hear the story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we get a message from C Team that they're going to send us a horse. And we said, a horse, and they wanted us essentially to check the feasibility of using it as a pack animal out on patrols. So, I told Team Sergeant, I don't know anything about horses. Nobody did, actually. So we started brainstorming. We said, well, we better get the carpenter, and we're going to have to make some sort of backpacking rack and, put some blankets on this thing. And so a couple of weeks later, C-130 or C-123 lands, and the ramp goes down, and here comes this horse. Yeah, it was a big pony. It was like one of those, I don't know. It was just a big pony. And the Vietnamese had never seen a horse in their entire life. They didn't know what this thing was. And it was kind of akin to, the Spaniards first riding up to see the Aztec Indians, But anyway, they were real leery of this thing. So we led the horse up to the camp, and we put a blanket on it, and first thing everybody wants to do, they want to ride the horse, So somebody got on the horse, and the horse wouldn't move. And they tried to lead it away. We had carrots in front of its nose, and it might take a step, but it wasn't walking. And then we said, well, all right, let's see what kind of load we can get on this horse. So we put they had fashioned some sort of wooden frame, and we're putting on ammo boxes on this thing. And that horse, you try to lead that horse away, it start limping, right? That horse never went outside the wire after that, because it was, there's no way we can take this on patrol. It's lame, But you take the load off, it wouldn't limp anymore. So it wasn't a dumb horse. So, and the only time it ran is if you test fired weapons or you got any incoming. That horse would take off at a full gallop across the camp. And it usually happened at night. It had all the trench lines memorized. It was jumping trench lines. And it'd run from one end of the American perimeter back and forth. And we would tell new guys that came into Canada, look, if we get incoming, make sure you stay in the trenches, And then they said, well, that makes sense. And I said, no, if you're on top of the trenches, the horse is going to run you over, But yeah, that was Clyde the Wonder Horse. We made a blanket. I got a picture of it. It's a army blanket. We took it down to the village to the seamstress and had these beautiful yellow block letters sewn on it. It had Sergeant Major Clyde. I think the letters were like 3 or 4 inches high. Sergeant Major Clyde. It had giant Sergeant Major stripes. I think it had A109 on there somewhere. But underneath in quotes, it had the Wonder Horse. So, and we had it on, you put the blanket on the horse, and it had the text on both sides of the blanket. And we usually put it on the horse when VIPs came into camp. And I can tell you that the first time that the company Sergeant Major came in and saw it, that would be Preacher Hodge. He did not like it.
Oh, I bet he didn't.
No, he didn't like it. So,
Well, the horses in Vietnam have a strange history. There were horses in various places, not many of them. The commanding general in 2 Corps, Vinlock, had a horse. He rode around and had his picture painted wearing a Montagnard costume out riding the horse. Montagnard said that was the tiger wearing the sheep's clothing. But the most significant aspect of horses in Vietnam was in Saigon, where they had a racetrack at Phu Ta that actually was occupied by the NVA during the Tet Offensive. I've been to the racetrack. it really was a miserable place. It was, a full scale racetrack, but the horses, sometimes they'd run backwards. They run the wrong way on the track. Nobody expected any great perfection out of the horses of Vietnam. So,
They must have, hey, Steve, they must have been English horses because in England, the horses run in the opposite direction that they do here in America.
no, this was some horses ran one way, some horses ran the other way
Oh.
during a race.
Hey, Joe,
Yes,
did you ever do a model of Thonduck?
no, I talked about it, but I never did.
Yeah, okay.
There was
Yeah, you-
somebody I was in touch with, and if you're interested, keep after me on it. But one of our members from Tucor has been involved
Oh,
in,
my.
making what do you call it, dioramas. And
Yeah.
so if that's something of interest, remind me, and I'll try to put you together with him. Gary Clark, what are you doing over here?
Me?
No, Gary Clark. You signed on, but you're being very silent.
Oh, well, I just want to see, this should bring back some
No,
memories for the guys.
Not-
That's the dining hall.
No. Mhm.
Unfortunately, I don't remember the names of most of the guys there.
What year is that?
Should be 67.
Oh,
And if I scroll down, remember Mama San?
yeah.
Scroll
He's
down
not
some
wearing
more.
a helmet.
Yeah,
I wonder what happened to her.
I don't know. That's Dick Minner. I
They
remember
probably put
him.
on her NBA colonel's uniform.
You think?
How about Pierce? Anybody remember Pierce, captain, the Daiwi?
Sure, that's not Loft?
And there's another one here. We medevac somebody one night. I don't know who it was. Pouring, drenching rain. I don't know how the pilot got the chopper in. We were soaked to the skin. This was after the medevac. There's Jim McNamara. Owens is on the right, second one up from the bottom. And I don't remember some of the other fellows there. Is that Hayes? I think the black fellow there might have been Hayes, who was later killed. And just another same picture. And then my 35 millimeter ran out of film, so I used my swinger. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's a patio.
Yes, sir. Yep. And then you got this.
If you back up on that patio shot.
Yeah.
That guy on the far left.
Yeah.
Isn't he one of the MACV advisors?
The
Yeah.
honest answer is I don't know.
We had MACV guys, we had 4 or 5 MACV advisors that lived in our camp with us. And they were responsible for the rough puffs at the provincial.
Well, you might have a point, right? I'm gonna get to another one. Maybe you can help
What
me
year
on
is
that.
it, Charlie?
What's that?
What year was it that the McVie guys? were there?
67.
67, they were there in 68, I know.
Right.
All right. And then
It was a Captain Colantuno that was in charge of them.
this is one of the US guys. I can't remember his name now. That should look familiar to you.
That skyline doesn't change.
No, it doesn't.
And then I don't know who these fellows were.
That's MACV guys.
Is that who that is?
Yeah, that's Brewer on the left, Colantuno is in the middle. And then the guy on the right was a SFC, was a Mexican guy. I can't
Yeah.
remember his name. It was like, I don't know, like,
Yeah, we didn't wear hats like that, Charlie. So
but the guy on the left, the far left is Robert Brewer, I think, Brewer, but
Okay.
I ran into him here in San Diego. He eventually passed away from cancer.
Right. These pictures, if you want to see them, are on my website. So I'm just looking at the website here. And more. Okay, that's it.
Well, Joe, tell me what you've been up to.
Well, when I got out of the military, I knew what I wanted to do. I went to University of Washington PA program. I was placed in Alaska for about 10 years, then I came down to the Northwest. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I was a PA for 41 or 2 years before I retired. I had a great career. I got nothing to complain about.
Joe, are you still in Portland?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I'm in Roseburg.
Oh. We should say hi to you when we drive down to California to see my son.
Well, if you're living in Portland, we have a little saying down here in the southern part. If you come from Portland, you have to come with a visa. We don't allow Portland people around here unless you have a visa.
Yep. I feel like I was lucky as hell. I got it. I was a degreed architect before I joined the Army. And it was me and 4 other guys. 3 of them all were in the CNC projects. My best buddy was Stroline, who was killed in like June of 70 or so. At any rate, he was in, that was a halo jump that he did, and in bad weather, and was never found. But I knew that I wanted to be a medic. I didn't want to be an officer. I did everything I wanted to do. It led to becoming a physician assistant, and I just can't imagine a better career. It was wonderful.
Did you specialize, Joe?
I did it the last part of my career. I was in urology.
Uh-huh. Now, when you went through medic training and stuff, did you know John Caviani?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I worked with John later on. What was it about? About the mid 80s. He was working out of Virginia with a program, a specialized program. So him and I interrelated together because we had to take care of the physicals and stuff like that for his unit and that stuff there. But I understand he passed away in California. He passed away in California, I think, of cancer.
I see.
So Joe, tell me, Joe, did your SF training give you a good foundation to be a PA?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the training is much more extensive, deeper, and much more difficult today. But when I went to the University of Washington, although I did attend class, I really didn't have to. The PA training was the SF training was great. Does anybody know John Paget?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in my class. John Winkleman, he was another SF medic. He was in my class as well.
What about Steve Yevich?
Steve is retired down in Florida.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, I know the name really well, but I can't remember whether I crossed paths with him or not. So
Yeah, he got out of the Army
I
and went
think
to he went to Tulane Medical School.
yeah. Of course. Yeah. That's Yevich actually became, I think, one of the commanding officers of SF training. If I'm not
Joe
Yeah.
mistaken.
Sigmund went to Tulane also, became a doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right, Anthony?
Yeah, and also a lawyer, a juris doctor and a medical doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, he can sue himself.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, what's his name from Minlong did that too. Richard Carmona.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he
became
was
the
the
Surgeon
Attorney
General.
General.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
Richard.
was the
had
Surgeon
a,
General of the United States.
Mhm.
I ran into Richard last August. He has a summer place over here by San Diego in Coronado.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He lives in I think Tucson.
Yeah, he was the only member of a SWAT team as a doctor.
Was he a doctor before he got in the SWAT team?
No.
He was a doctor before he was in the SWAT team, and then he
Oh,
joined the SWAT team, and he wound up killing the guy. shooting a guy.
First, do no harm. Remember,
I don't think that was Richard's method.
Yeah, it was the wrong practice.
One of the main reasons for even having a PA program was to make use of the SF medical training. They didn't want to lose it. And
Absolutely.
for good reason.
But
And
yeah,
I had,
believe, current medical training, they're trying to get a national certification. If you complete SF training, then you become a national certified PA.
yeah, they're not.
Oh, really?
PAs out of SF people are
Well-
just common. And in fact, when I was doing the 2-Corp team, they asked me to find one guy. The only thing they knew was he was supposed to be a PA in Washington State. And I couldn't find him. So I called the PA Association of Washington State and left a message. And a day later, I got some secretary calling me back. Says, he's retired, but I'll get in touch with him for you. And by the way, he's PA number 1 in Washington State. His license number 1.
I don't know if you guys are aware, but there are services like the Navy where you can be a medic with 8 or 10 or 12 weeks of training, and that's all. So when you get out and you go to school, like say RN school, you're treated like the guy who had 8 or 10 or 12 weeks of training. And nurses can't abide that. They, I recall in special forces, a doctor saying, "Gentlemen, is there anyone here who doesn't know how to make a bed?" And nobody raised their hand, and he said, "Good, we're going to go on to more important things." But I went to nurse school for a semester and 8 weeks. And at the 8th week of the second semester, I told them where they could shove their program. And I took the state board as an RN. And I've worked as an RN in the state of California ever since. And I've cannulated the hearts of many, many famous people. People as famous as Bill Clinton, even though he was not my patient.
yeah.
Well, the best thing is that there was that line about the nurse being able to make the patient without messing up the bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, all of those avenues are really locked up today in excessive regulation. So for the fact, one of the major problems that SF medics have coming out of the military is that if they want, first of all, there is no national certification for SF medics, at least currently that I've heard of. But if they want to go to a PA schools today will not accept you unless you have a bachelor's degree. And in some cases, they want a master's degree. So, the SF medic coming out of the military is really deficient in just basic undergraduate courses so they can slip into a program and get it done. I just wish somebody would grab that head on, because
I think they do. I think that they have a warrant in the Army
they do.
for PAs.
Yeah, they
Right,
do.
but-
Yeah.
But see, the Army has a real PA school as well.
Yeah.
Which is different because it's a different scope than an SF medic. It's much broader, and because all physician assistants are trained in general medicine, just like a doctor getting out of training. And then you can differentiate from there. So anyway,
Hey,
I
Joe.
wanted to broach a very, very, very important subject. I think I'm younger than most of you because I recall in Christmas of 1968 at Special Forces Training Group being put on a detail with the commanding officer's daughter, who was 17 and a half. And I was called in to have Christmas dinner with her because I was the youngest man in the unit. That's the only reason I knew that everybody was older than I was.
Sounds like we're playing two truths and a lie now.
Hey, Joe,
Yeah,
you're up in Portland. The medical school up in Portland, I don't know, I've heard the abbreviation.
OHSU.
Now, where I'm living at here in Roseburg, I have an apartment, okay, that I stay here temporarily. But what's funny is to show you how full circle things come. The apartment right in back of me, if you look like my wall right here, that apartment is for the PA students from up there.
Nice.
They come down and do their rotation work here at Mercy Hospital.
Yeah. OHSU started their PA program in the mid 80s, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah, but it was so
Actually,
fun.
Let me tell you a little story about medical care up here. So, OHSU and the vet center, their major buildings are on this place called, it's a hill. It's going up into the Northwest Hills. They call it Pill Hill because it's all medical. But virtually everyone in the VA has dual licensure with OHSU.
Uh-huh.
So I ended my career at Kaiser Permanente, so I'm a retiree there, and I get medical insurance and everything. So I had a little problem in, getting my retiree insurance going initially, and I went to the VA. They accepted me, and frankly, because of the relationship, the care is incredible. And I've
Yeah.
had some pretty bad orthopedic problems. I currently get my care from the VA right now. I can go back to Kaiser if I want to, but the relationship between the VA and OHSU makes that whole organization better, lots better.
I wish they would transfer that method down to the VA hospital here in Roseburg.
Yeah,
They don't have too good of a reputation down here.
they don't. You're right.
Every VA is different. In Houston,
Yeah.
the VA here is called the DeBakey Hospital Medical Center. And therefore, they are the specialists in heart care.
Oh yeah, he has
And
had quite a name.
well, he really was very instrumental in making the VA here what it was, and the relationship with Baylor and everything else. There are certain departments here, cardiology, endocrine, that are really first rate. And there are other departments that I wouldn't go near. Stay away from the neurology department.
Yeah.
Each VA all over the country has different specialties, different capabilities. So it's hard to classify them that way.
Yeah, I don't even use the VA here. I'm fortunate when I retired from the United Nations, I kept my United Nations health insurance, and it covers everything. So I'm pretty fortunate.
I got a kid brother who got a disability retirement out of the Air Force for a heart problem. And eventually he had to have a heart transplant.
Wow.
So he was going through the VA here in San Diego, and the VA contracts with, I think it's Scripps Hospital here in San Diego, or UCSD, but they got top-notch heart specialists over there. They're some of probably the best in the country. And they are the ones that did his heart transplant. The VA paid for it. And my brother's doing well, but he'll tell you, if you go to the VA for a hangnail, they'll probably amputate your arm, so. But if it's heart related, he wouldn't blink about going back to the VA.
Charlie,
Hey,
how long have you been in San Diego?
Off and on, probably over 65 years.
My sister's retired there. She was a school teacher in San Diego. Her
What's
husband
her
was a command master chief petty officer there.
What's her name?
Rollison.
Rosen?
No, Rollison. Rollison.
Yeah.
She ran a preschool for 30 some years. The Lutheran preschool.
Okay.
Hey, I wanted to tell a little story about our camp. I left there in late November, early December of 70. I can't remember which. But But at any rate, so I'm back in the States. I'm a PA. I'm working at Kaiser Permanente. And I put a couple of my things on the wall. And I guess most of you have the plaque saying that you were on an A camp.
Right.
So amongst other things, I had that on my wall. So I was talking to a young guy who I was treating as my patient. He didn't say anything. Yeah, so I brought him back to the office. We talked. Next time he came back in, he came back with a big book full of photographs. He was in MACD, who, and I may get this wrong because I don't really track this very well, but he was one of the group of Americans that were assigned to that camp after we left. I mean, he had photographs of everything, the dogs that were up there, and you name it. It's kind of interesting.
He had pictures of A109?
Yeah. I mean, he
Wow.
was there. He basically took over from us when we left. He and others, obviously. He was the non-com.
Hey, before we break up, you think I wanted to tell Steve, the way I met Steve is he made a phone call here in Oregon and left a message for me. And I wanted to thank him publicly for sending me the awards that I didn't know I had. And he did that on his own without me even knowing it. And I had this strange message on my machine from this guy named Steven saying that if you were at Thong Duck, give me a call. So I called him and he sent me the certificates for my awards that I didn't even know I had. So that was pretty nice of him to do that.
Thanks, Steve.
Mike,
Yeah.
I
did
have
you re-enlist and get a Mustang?
Did I get a Mustang? Oh, yeah, a Mustang. God, I forgot all about that stuff.
Just wondered what all came to fruition. If any of you guys did anything really, really special as far as grandchildren goes, beyond a tree house or an electric train bridge across your living room or Estes rockets. Anything else for grandchildren you've pulled off?
Teach him how to low crawl.
Oh, they got that. Discipline.
Hey, I've got a question. So I was there in the latter part of Thong Duck's existence. And although we didn't have as much action as most of you guys did, there was a lot of threats going on. We were getting mortared every day and so forth. Right at the very end, I was on a big operation. There was a big Vietnamese operation going on, and they were up in the tennis courts. And the current company or A-team commander and I were inserted into that operation, Valentine and myself. So it was a pretty big operation, and he sent me an after action report from the Air Force about what they did up there to assist us. But I would love to find some documents that talk about the various things that happened at Thong Duck from about, I don't know, May or June up to December, when basically the last guy left.
Of what year?
70.
70.
D company, C company was very, very poor in 1970 on keeping records. The Mike Force basically stopped thereafter writing after action reports for 1970.
Really?
Yeah, and the MOPSUMs were poor. But what I do have two things. There is a history of the CIDG program that was written in 1971 by clerks in each of the C detachments who just went back through the files as they were packing everything up, and they were told to write a narrative history, and that exists. The other thing that I have is the MOPSUMs, which you may recall at the camp level were, how many cases of VD did you treat with a CIDG? But when they got consolidated and brought up to the group level, they're a little bit more specific. They ended up with about a paragraph every month for each camp. And I have most of them. And in fact, if there's any volunteers out there, I'm very happy to send you a couple mopsums from your time frame and ask you to help edit them, because I scan them from the original, but they need to be fixed up, which is scanning it just does not do a really great job in capturing everything. So if you have an interest in that, get back with me and I'll give you a couple months of 1970 to play with, or whatever you're interested in. It's about 2 weeks per mopsum, I guess, of work to clean them all up. And I tend to give people out 3 of them, and there's no real time frame in getting it back. Now, while I'm here tooting my horn, let me also mention a couple of other things on here. I mentioned in my letter, I don't know how many of you, most of you, I think, have got the Green Beret magazines that I reprinted some time ago. Those are the magazines from Vietnam. If you haven't, you should. I only have a bit over 100 of the sets left, but I would like to clear them out of my warehouse, which I've been maintaining for all these years. And so if you want the Green Beret magazines, get back to me. Is there anybody who doesn't remember what the Green Beret magazines are?
I have them.
So in any event, the 5-volume set of Green Beret magazine.
Steve, that Green Beret magazine, I was at A109 from September of 66 through June of 70. The Green Beret magazine, I had some back issues. While I was there, we lost our medic Wolfram Bischoff, and I used the Green Beret magazine to send to his son, showing dates on when his dad was promoted, and also got I think it was a Bronze Star for Valor.
Mm-hmm.
But a second comment, I guess it's for Joe Marzucco. You mentioned the MACV people that came in after us. We had 2 Nungs in our camp the whole time I was there. One Nung, Ve Nit Song. Boy, he was built like a brick outhouse, but they are very loyal to us, of course. I wonder whatever happened to those 2 individuals. They lived, of course, right within our compound and were very loyal. Anybody have any information on what happened to those two Nungs?
I don't remember them in the 70s when I was there.
Yeah, Jim, in the early times, and I'm counting 66 as an early time, very often Nungs would be at a camp to provide personal security to the SF people. But around that time, they started being pulled back. 65, whoever they could grab would pull back to the Mike Force in the Trang, and pulled away. They came out of the A teams. So slowly they disappeared from the A teams. Roger Donlin was almost. The fact is that the Nung force that he had was the main defense that he had, because the CID weren't worth a shit. But that there weren't enough real Nungs to let that happen for a long time.
Song was
Anybody there?
Song was still with me in February of 68. In fact, he was my driver of my truck when we got ambushed.
Hey, Steve, when they had the Vietnamese evacuation and they brought all the people by ships to Guam, I was sent from Okinawa to Guam. We had to do the physicals, immunizations, and everything on the refugees, especially the children and stuff. I only saw out of the I think the 25,000 that we did the surveys and all that stuff. I only saw 1 Nung.
Wow.
1.
Does anybody here recall a combat operation where a bullet came through the bottom of a helicopter and hit Robert Cerniak in the foot?
That was just before I got to A109. Cerniak and I have talked about that. That was a bad one for, I mean, it was in the heel of his foot, I think it was.
He still hasn't gotten a Purple Heart.
What?
No. Barry Archer wrote him a letter. Anybody, if you know anybody who knows somebody who knows something about it, give him a call.
Steven will, if there's an award, Steven will know about it. Like I said, he got me the two that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah, well, he does not have a Purple Heart from fifth group that I have.
No.
And he doesn't have another award at the same time.
And
Match up with it.
certainly a lot of us saw him limping.
Well, look,
Jumped out of the tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a process for getting that to happen. Usually they your witnesses are sufficient on a Purple Heart to make that happen. So you just have to be persistent and doing it. They invented a form called the DD 215 as opposed to DD 214.
Apparently Barry Archer, and I have no reason to doubt, he told me that he wrote a letter to the Army, and what the Army came back with was that there are after action reports that don't reflect that Cerniak was wounded.
Yeah, I can check with the Helicopter Pilots Association. They pretty well know every bullet that went through every aircraft they had. And what, you have the date on this event?
No, I think it was late summer of 70.
No, it had to be early summer.
Gotta have to
Well,
check down.
Well, Cerniak should know what it was,
Yeah.
and he's supposed to be on here. And if he's not, that's his own fault. So,
Hey, Steve, this is Jim Duffy. I've talked to Bob about that whole process, and he was able to get additional letters of support from people that saw him, when the wound happened and after, and the fact that he was off duty for a while to heal. Part of the biggest problem is he refused the Purple Heart initially. And then afterthought, years and years passed, he wants the Purple Heart. So there's been many processes that occurred to try to get him that award, and the Army just keeps on turning it down. But your thought about the Helicopter Association is a good thought, I think. If they were able to come up, I don't know if they would have ever given the name of the person that got hit or not.
that's why it needs a date. I can find.
I will
internet.
have Bob contact you. How's that with the date?
That will work.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, he's probably not on here because he's not very high tech.
I spoke to his wife just a little while ago, and
Yeah.
she said that as soon as he comes home, she'll put him on.
Yeah.
Here. She knows what
Good.
she's doing.
Was
Yeah,
was
he
he
does.
shot when he was in the Mike Force or when he was on the camp?
Mike Force.
Okay.
Yeah, he was with the Mike Force. Just as a side note, kind of funny what happened. After the siege, I had got wounded back in February, and it gave me an infection that went through my entire body, and I got through the siege. And within 2 weeks after, my body just shut down, basically. Went to the hospital in Da Nang, and the last word the guys had at the team from David Cook was, I was dead. I had died. And in 2008, I'm at the team house 118 during the convention. I went there with the tour bus, and Greg Biela and Bob Cerniak came in a private automobile. And I'm standing behind Greg looking at the photos of the different camps. He says, yeah, this is the best camp in Vietnam. And I said, I would agree with you. And he said he served there in 69, 70. And I said, I was there then too. And he looked at me and says, who the fuck are you? And he saw my name. Then he saw my name tag, Duffy. And he said, "You're dead." 36 years later.
As basic functions shut down when you have a systemic infection, back then, not many people survived, so
No,
Causes
I
hair-
was very.
It causes
I had,
hair loss too, Jeb.
lucky
What's that?
guy.
It causes hair loss too.
Oh, I don't know about that. It fucked up they were starting to look at my brain. I said, no, I volunteered airborne and special forces. My brain's fine. You know? But yeah, I got staph septicemia as a result of a wound on an operation in February. Never knew it. It was going through my body. I knew I was a little bit off, but still operational. And then my body just, after the seizure, just said, fuck you, that's enough, you
Yeah.
know?
Let me tell you, I'll try to make this brief. I'll tell you my one big war story. I get wounded, I get medevaced to, was that naval support activity at Da Nang?
95th of
95th
Act.
of Act. Yeah.
Yeah.
95th of Act. Yeah.
Just a second, I got a helicopter going on. Anyway. So I'm on a Huey and we land at the Naval Activity Support Center there. And by then the Navy had their procedures down pat. They knew exactly how they were going to get casualties off of helicopters and I was conscious, so I'm laying there and I'm watching all these Navy corpsmen come pouring out of this building, and they all had stretchers, and they put me on a stretcher, and they take you to it was like an open area, carport kind of area, and they put us on sawhorses, and then each corpsman's got their own job. One guy, all he does is cut your clothes off. That's all he does. He doesn't talk to you. He doesn't check for holes or anything. He just cuts your clothes off. And when he gets that job done, he's done. Another guy runs around and he gets your blood pressure, and whatever your blood pressure is, they take these magic markers and they write it on your chest, or they write it somewhere. And another guy went around and was kind of looking for holes, and a lot of guys were getting their jobs done, and I'm laying there on my stretcher, and I got about 10 Vietnamese around me on their stretchers, and they're all moaning and groaning. And I saw this one corpsman, he had a clipboard, and all he was supposed to do was get the names of the patients. That's all he had to do, is get a name. And he was having a tough time because he was talking to Vietnamese who didn't speak English, and he didn't speak Vietnamese. And he was really getting frustrated. And he kept looking, he's pointing at his name tag, me Smith, what is your name? And they weren't giving him an answer. And he was just getting really frustrated. And he's going from Vietnamese to Vietnamese. And he's working his way towards me. And it suddenly dawned on me, I am buck ass naked on this stretcher, and I was probably a good 50 pounds lighter, and I was just as dark as these Vietnamese, and I had black hair. And I'm actually, my father's Filipino, but I look like a big mountain yard back then. So I'm laying on my stretcher, and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "What's your name? What's your name?" "Me Smith." "What's your name?" And I looked at him and I said, I'm Carlos M. I not, you motherfucker. He literally jumped back about 3 feet and he yelled, "Hey, this one speaks English." And then it kind of, the light came on and he came back. He goes, "Are you an American?" I says, "Yeah, I'm an American." He says, and then the next thing he said was something like, "What are you doing out here?" And I got that to mean that the Americans had front of the line privileges, So I got whipped into the inside real quick, but that's the thing I remember that day was this guy thought I was, some ally.
Did he write down your last name was motherfucker or kinda?
Change your name tag there, Smith.
Name motherfucker.
But, yeah,
Yeah, fellow that's not here today, Bob Waller. It's a small world. I came back from my second tour, June of '68, waiting for my assignment orders back to 5th Group at Long Bend. And I start chatting with this fella. I don't know, he's a first, second lieutenant. I think the guy's name was Robert Waller. And we had a couple of small chats. And of course, I never saw him again. But then later on, when I left Thong Duck, things are still relatively quiet. We got banged a couple of times, but nothing like you guys in '68. But yeah, I guess Waller acquitted himself pretty damn well. I'm sorry I didn't see him at the any of the SF conventions, but I sure hope to run into that guy again. And
He was
one
at the
other
last
comment, a memory that I have from Thong Duck, the LLDB commander, I think his name was Zoo. I don't care if it was 150 degrees outside. That guy always wore a flak jacket. I don't care where, he always wore that flak jacket. But I thought he was a pretty damn good officer, compared to most of the other LLDB, unfortunately.
I like to think he made it out of the country and owns a 7-Eleven somewhere right now, but
Yeah.
I agreed.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Hey, listen, gents, I've got to leave, but it was nice seeing all of you.
Hey,
Bye,
Joe,
Joe.
if you drive through, my number's in the book.
Okay, all right. I'll try to look you up. Actually, I'm going to get in touch with Steve, see if he can give me names and email addresses. Talk to people.
Look, on the email I sent you to invite you to this meeting,
Yeah, that has everybody on there.
everybody's emails are on it. And there's nothing preventing you from just forwarding that message out and putting your own body underneath it, saying, hey, I'm going to have my own Zoom session such a time. I've got to move through all the camps in I Corps and then take care of 3 and 4 Corps. So I'm going to be tied up on this shit for a little while. But
Anyway,
there's nothing should stop you from going on. And A109 has really been good in having its own reunion activities. So
Well,
keep it up.
let me ask one last question before I leave. Jim, is Greg Vila in bad shape medically?
I spoke to him a couple days ago. He didn't seem, he was finished his operation. There was no result, no bad result from the operation. But a back injury is always difficult to recover from.
Yeah, I'm right now, I'm not able to walk without assistive devices just because of that. It's incredible. Anyway, nice chatting with all of you. You guys take care.
Take care, Joe.
Good to see you all vertical.
pleasure.
All of you have a
Thank
good
you.
year. Steve, yeah, thank
Looking
you
at the
also for
graph.
the time, sweat and effort you put into this.
Yeah, thanks for putting it
And
together.
Thank you, Steve, for setting this up. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you all could come here. I'm surprised I didn't have more. I think that there were 51 people on the A109 email. And that 10 or 12 that showed up here is a small percentage considering the enthusiasm that I talked when I talked to people. Jim just couldn't keep track of his calendar over there, I guess. So that's why he was a little late to the meeting. But
Well, it's been nice seeing everybody for a long time. Tony, I'm sorry that I hadn't had you in my thoughts, but as soon as I saw the naming, it came flooding back to me.
Yeah.
Steve, did you ever
Hey,
get in
Steve.
contact with Brian Jenkins?
yes, I did.
Good.
I was expecting to see him here too.
Well, he's busier than a one-armed paper hanger. Yeah, after active duty, he was also an XO out at Thong Duck, but he kept going to school. He's now the chief terrorism expert for the Rand Corporation, and he's busier than a one-armed paper hanger.
I think he
Testifying for-
was doing that for Rand, and then he did it in a couple other auspices as well.
Yep.
But he went back to work for Rand after he left SF. When I went back to Vietnam in 69, he was working for Rand at that time. I saw him in Saigon. And then, of course, that continued long afterward. And I think he's retired from Rand now, but he still takes consulting jobs from different people on the area of terrorism. And I think he's got another specialty along with it now. I can't remember what it was, but I'd seen it.
Yep, he stayed busy.
Yep.
Hey, Steve, this is Jim.
I gotta go.
Somebody asked about
you.
after action reports.
Right.
John Wigner, who was my XO, after A109, he went back to the C team. And I know on Facebook, he's made a number of comments about reading the after action reports, particularly for the Cs that we went through. But he had very, very detailed information. So unfortunately, he's not on here, but I think he'd be a wealth of information on some of the after action reports, Don Duck.
Well, it seemed to me that I copied a lot of material for Greg out of the archives. And the Greg, I believe, has that material, or you do, one of you two. And I may have a copy of it here, but I pulled a lot of stuff on A109 out just because Greg has been so active. I'm wearing my Portland t-shirt here. So that stuff is out there, and somebody from the camp has to take up on it and get out there and put it all together in some way. I'll be happy to help out, but I can't do that for 100 camps in Vietnam. I've done it for a lot of aspects of the camps, but 100 camps is more than I can deal with individually. Yeah, I'm quite sure that that's there. CD plus S.
Was Steve?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check out. Thanks a lot for putting this together. Good meeting everyone, and so long for now.
All right. Well, take care.
Take care, Ed.
Bye to everybody. I'm leaving too. It was really, really nice seeing you all. And I hope you continue to be healthy.
Hey, Tony, try to stay in touch.
Will do. It's
Yeah, this is
Oregon and
terrific.
you're in the phone book?
Yeah, I'm in. In fact, I'll email you my phone number and my private number.
Super. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you all.
Best wishes to all.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
I'm out of here.
Okay.
Mike, open up a bed and breakfast in England. We'll all come over.
Hey, listen, without joking, if any of you are ever traveling there and I'm at home, I'll give you my personal phone number. And I live about 2 hours outside of London, north of London, and it's a big place. I mean, not a mansion or anything, but it's a big place, and you'll be more than welcome to stay there.
I'll bring my poncho lantern.
Hey,
Thank you.
okay, you guys take care.
All right.
Adios.
I'm going to check out too there, Steve. You going to be at the next convention?
If they decide to hold it, I will. They're still having trouble trying to figure out where they can find a hotel in Colorado.
Yeah, I see that one closed down
Yeah.
or got sold or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Actually, I've been doing these Zoom sessions here now for the last about 3 months, and I'm really pleased with how they're working out.
Mhm.
And on the last convention, we had two conventions back to back,
Yeah.
I didn't get as much done in those two conventions as I do in one of these Zoom sessions, really. Because I've got to talk to all the people.
Who was asking about Bob Waller?
That was me. I just met him face to face very briefly in June of '68. And then, yeah, I read later on where he became the XO at A109.
I
You guys were getting,
think he was at the last convention.
he was, I saw a picture of him. Damn
Las
it,
Vegas
I didn't get to see him while he was there, but
with
the next
Art
convention,
Carboni.
I do plan to go, and I do want to get a seat at that A109 table.
Yeah. Well, I'll be easy to spot. I'll be the guy on the stretcher on the sawhorse.
I'll just after motherfucker.
Yeah, that's it. That right there. All right. You guys take it easy.
Okay,
Strength and honor.
Thank you again, Steve.
all right.
Adios.
What is this here? Okay. Here is some stuff here. Let's see what it is. Yeah. I am going to share the screen. Is this it? Here. Share. Okay, this is what I would mention to Jim Duffy. All right, here's a whole file. I don't know how many pages this is. Can I move this? Doesn't tell me. But this just stuff out of the archives. How many pages? Doesn't really tell me how many pages it is. Some is very bad. But it's virtually everything out of the archives I found on Thang Duc. Some briefing notes and after action reports. A109, April of 70, 30 April 70. So, you know, there's just a lot of stuff here. I haven't even gone through it all myself that much. But there's a lot of information if anybody wants to pick it up and run with it. It's out there. And if Waller's got some more, that's another trove of material. Oh. Stop share. Okay. There we go. John, I don't think we heard a peep from you yet.
I'm just listening.
You're just listening. What does the studio, John, have to say?
I don't know what that is. I had to have help getting in it, so I haven't touched anything.
Are you running a studio of some sort?
No, not at all. I don't know where that came from or what it means.
Okay. Well, then I will just make you just plain old John.
That'll work.
I'm surprised that, you know, one of the nice things about doing what I do is I run into all kinds of people and I run into what they're doing these days. And, you know, I ran into probably half a dozen people who have studios where they are artists or cartoonists or diorama makers or other things, and you know they're producing some interesting material.
Well, that's definitely not me. So I'm not very artistic or creative.
Well, Pat, what do you got to say for yourself?
I'm just listening and learning.
You're just listening and learning.
I was there in 69, 70.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Martha Ray came out and visited the camp. Anybody remember that?
Well, certainly we remember her for in other places of Vietnam as well.
Yeah.
Last month I had a guy on who ended up being her escort officer for almost a month, and he said that he went down to Saigon to pick her up, and told her that the first thing on his calendar was they were supposed to have dinner with General Abrams, and she said, "I don't want to have dinner with him." So he said, "Hey, it's my ass that's going to get reamed out if you don't go." And so she very graciously agreed to attend, and the whole trip went very well, and that's recorded. I've got a website up there that I will pass on to everybody that I'll have this recording on, but that his recording on Martha Ray will be on that website as well. So, you know, I'll put together a lot of stuff as a result of this, but really, I'm counting on you guys to do your own follow-ups, to do your own history, get people organized to go ahead. 109 is going to do that, and with Greg out there pushing it, they've done a good job of keeping that information together. So I would expect it to continue. But there's still a lot more out to be organized. Greg is good, enthusiastic, but as far as getting him to write down any history, you're not going to get that from him. You're gonna have somebody else is going to have to do it. And if we don't do it, there's not going to be anybody else left to do it for us. So people say that the military historians are going to take care of our history, make sure we record it. They don't do that. Their job is to work for the command, and the history they're interested in is what the command thinks they need to do their job today. So, you know, you might see something interesting out of USASOC or something like that. It's only interesting because somebody decided the commander wanted to know about that topic. And that's why they record it. But as far as what we need to have that records our own history, where our job is going to be, we have to do it by ourselves, because you can't count on them doing it. So,
Steve, have you heard anything about what's going to happen with the Special Forces Museum on Fort Bragg?
yeah, it seems to be moving out to the SF Association grounds. There's been some back and forth, but the museum's not going to die. There was talk about merging it with a private museum downtown, and that was not a good idea, really. The SF has a lot of its own material, and it would disappear in that bigger museum and probably end up getting looted by people. Better, even at the SF campground out there, it's probably safer than it would be in the big museum downtown, because they have a limited amount of space anyway for SF, and they use it. There's enough material out there to keep their displays active. SF has got a hell of a lot more than they've ever shown, because they've got warehouses full of shit. But you know,
Well, that Roxanne Merritt, boy, she's a mover and a shaker. And I just wondered if she bumped political shoulders with the USASOC history department. But I hope Roxanne stays with it. And yeah, this is our history. This is our culture.
No, I think Roxanne is staying with it. USASOC, they've had almost full turnover of the people in there. I got an email from one guy who was there and he's left. And he says, there's 3 historians left in USASOC, and he gave him some interesting name. I forgot what it was. But he said, you want to talk to them, talk to the 3, whatever he called them. What is this thing here? So, okay, here, Sherman Seals. S-A-L-S. The Historical Trinity at USASOC. But they sent 2 people. I think Seals was one of them. They sent 2 people here to Houston to talk to me a couple of years ago before this COVID shit came down and see what I had. And I let them copy a lot of material here, but in the 2 days that they were here, they could barely scratch the surface of what they've got. I've got about 8 filing cabinets full of material, as well as books and other things that they would like to have, but if I gave it to them, it would disappear. So I have a young man who lives here in Houston and has a great deal of interest in this. And my plan is that he will take over from me when I'm gone. I'm just racing against time to get as much of it done as possible that I can do. So that will happen. I am just about finished. I finished a 14-volume history of the Vietnam War. I was the editor of the series that I put out, and that's on my website. And then I'm now working on another group of things, which are about 30 volumes of historical material, MACV command histories, MACV SOG command histories, and DAO quarterly reports. So I'm putting them together as a historical resource. They've been out there, but they're almost unreadable. You know how we used to copy documents in those old copy machines, and we cut off half the page over here. You couldn't read the first 3 letters of every sentence. And that's what that shit looks like. So I've gone through it all, and I figured out what words they were having, what words they were missing. And I put them all together. And as I said, I've got 30 volumes of material that I'm about to release. Basically, the only thing left to do is pagination.
You know him?
Jim, welcome. Jim, you got some background noise over there. I believe you got a radio going or something.
Jim Jockums, I met you when you came in with the B team that came into Klong Nai. And then later on, I think you were the XO at Trebong. Am I correct on that?
What? He was, I believe so. Jim can't talk. I'm his wife. I'm going to talk for him.
Okay.
The women can always talk.
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Jockums, don't you give your husband a kiss for me, but please give him a handshake for me, please.
Okay, I will. What? What? He was the commander of what? Of Trebong. He was the commander of a team in Trebong, he says.
Yeah, I was the XO at A103 Geovuk when your husband first came out he was with the B detachment, the new B detachment that came into Quang Ngai.
Right?
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, he says, yep, he remembers that.
in about an hour, there'll be a whole new group of people coming here, which is A107, which is Trabant. This is A109 right now. You're a little bit early for A107, but this one has wound down right now.
Okay.
So
well, should we
we're
go
welcome
out?
to be here.
Should we go out and come back? We'll
No,
come back.
there's no need for that. I just want you to be aware of the fact that that the A107 people will be coming in here in about an hour or during the course of the next hour. All right. So
Okay.
if you see all these other guys, they were just down the street from you. And most of them have already gone back. We're down to the hardcore right here.
Trabong, another, again, a small world. I completed SFOC in September of 65. I think by January of 66, we could have had a class reunion in Vietnam. One of my classmates, John Fuel, he had become the XO at 107. Damn, I don't think he was in country more than about 45 days. And I think there was a Reef Snyder, and it was at least there were the third person. They got caught up in a real bad ambush, but damn it, they're good people. I wish they could have stuck around longer.
You remember?
That would have been a little bit before your time over there. In fact, there's a very good book I have just been reading here by Homer Lee Barnes called When We Walked Above the Clouds.
Yes, good book, very good book.
On his tour at Trabong at that time. Fuel actually came in as the commander of a fifth group team that was replacing the Australians at Trabong.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And he went out almost immediately on an operation to help out a nearby rough puff unit. And, he really hadn't been in country long enough to know that he was just walking into an ambush.
Well, John Fuel, I found out later on, I got there for the first tour in January 66. And yeah, I was at Geovuk 103, Trabong, just up the valley. But John, yeah, they went out, they got caught in that ambush. The document that I read, John was wounded. He was captured. Somehow he escaped. Don't know how, but he escaped. He was recaptured. The bad guys tried to interrogate him. John gave him a hard time. And that's when the bad guys, they just chopped his head off. There was an asset, don't know what agency, but there was an asset later on in the area. He smelled something bad coming out of nearby brush, and he went over there. And here was John Fuel's head and his body. It was still that bad guy area. So the only thing that could be brought out by this asset was John's head. And later on, that was all that was sent back to the States in the coffin. And yeah, you mentioned Barnes. I'm not sure if that was the same fella. At that time, if somebody got KIA on a team member escorted the remains back to the States. And I just happened to be up at Da Nang when that, again, it might have been Barnes, when he came back from the States. And he said that John's wife was in pretty good shape. John's parents were pretty much, they were not in good shape. But John's wife was the only one. Of course, it was a closed casket. She was the only one that was aware that all there was in the casket was just John's head. But Ken Casey was a C team commander. Initially, John Fuel was reported MIA. But I remember Facey saying there was a conversation, there were about 4 or 5 of us. And Facey said it in his letter to Mrs. Fuel. He said, yeah, technically John was MIA, but Facey said he did everything to tell her most assuredly John Fuel was KIA. But again, John, like so many damn fine officers, we lost him way too soon. Excuse me for rambling, but some somber memories, but very.
Is this the first time he's done this? George, is this the first
That's
time? he's-
understandable. We gotta take the good with the bad, and we make the most of it that we can.
Steve, at the last convention, I was a POW escort at the end of the war, and my guy was Steve Leopold. He had gotten picked up, captured at Ben Het.
Must know Steve.
You probably met Steve when he first came in. Is that correct?
No, in fact, for a long time, I had heard that somebody was captured at Van Het who was the CA PSYOPs officer on the team, and I thought it was Ewan McKechnie, and I had that impression for a very long time until after I came back and saw the McKechnie. I spoke to McKechnie, and he was here. I spoke to Leopold. Leopold was a roommate of Mike Binge in the Hanoi Hilton.
Gotcha. Correct.
Mike and I are pretty close on certain occasions.
Is this bothering you?
I met him both at the SF convention here and at the SF convention, I think in Portland.
Do you want to go on?
And in one of the books, maybe Al Santoli's books, they had a very interesting interview with Leopold, in which it turns out that he was able to speak enough Vietnamese and enough bad Vietnamese so that he would make his torturers, who were very puritanical, just so upset with him that they would leave him alone. He would say nasty things about their mothers while they were torturing him. And instead of getting tortured more, they'd say, leave this crazy guy alone.
Well, Steve Leopold, boy, as you know, he's a brilliant guy, and his memory, oh my God, he's got a photographic memory for sure. We still stay in very close contact. Yeah, we roomed together, at the last convention, and I'm glad he got to chat with you. He also got to chat very briefly with Ike Camacho.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew Ike was there, but damn it, here again, I worked with Ike back in 71, 72 on Okinawa in first group. But again, I missed chatting with Ike, but Steve Leopold, boy, he's still got a real sharp mind, and he kind of commutes between Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Puerto Vallarta. But he's a brilliant individual. Short story about Leopold. We came back to the States. We were at Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center. I was a senior escort, and I got called down by the hospital adjutant. He told me that one of the alleged turncoats was coming back to Fitzsimmons. So he wanted to tell me first so I could tell our escorts, and our people would find out first rather than reading it in the newspaper. So I go right back and I sit down with Leopold, and to the best of my recollection, that's the only time I saw Steve Leopold really get angry. And he said, Mac, that guy, I forget which turncoat it was. It wasn't the SF guy. I think it might have been a Navy guy, but Steve said, Mac, that guy's a sorry son of a bitch. He's lower than whale shit. A lot of people want to kill that guy because he was a turncoat. He said, now, if you, meaning the hospital, if you pay him, he knows there's a lot of people who want to kill him. He said, you pay him and he's going to take that money and run. So, of course, I passed that right back to the hospital adjutant. As it turned out, that turncoat did not come while we were still at Fitzsimmons. But again, a small world. 9 years later, I go back to Fitzsimmons to get my first artificial hip. The lady shrink in 06 who had interviewed Leopold in 73, that lady shrink, Tilly Brown, had come back to Fitzsimmons. So I made an appointment with her, went down and chatted with her, and I related how Leopold had reacted when I told him about this other turncoat coming back. And Tilly came back and said that every other Army hospital or every other medical facility where there was a returnee, if they found out too that there was a turncoat coming back to their same medical facility, each one of those returnees, boy, really just got damn violent. Bottom line, everybody's got a breaking point. I've never asked Leopold about his torture. I'm interested in what you said. I've not heard that. I've never asked him about being tortured. But what I understood from Leopold and other people during that experience was when it was their turn in the torture chamber, when they realized they were coming to their breaking point, they'd come back to their cell at night, afternoon, and they'd use the tap code and send it up to Colonel Guy, the POW wing commander, and basically ask permission to say something. They said, I'm reaching the end of my rope, request permission to say something. The guys would pass that up through the tap code. And of course, Colonel Guy, and I met him too with Leopold in Arizona, but Guy would always come back, hold out as long as you can, permission granted. Everybody that did that, there was no rancor by any of the other POWs. But those 7 goddamn turncoats, those guys just rolled over. And yeah, they're sorry bastards. Excuse my French.
I was talking to a fellow this morning who was in my OCS class, and he was talking about having been in a Wall Street firm in the early 80s or mid 80s. And they had a ticker tape parade that I'd never heard about for Vietnam veterans in New York City. Says it was the biggest event, ticker tape parade for Vietnam veterans that ever was held. But his friends in that accounting or brokerage firm set it all up. And they had invited a number of people. Westmoreland, of course, he came. And then he invited a number of POWs. And he said one POW was Special Forces.
John Young.
John Young. And I said, John Young was one of the turncoats. And he said, well, I don't know about that. But Young apparently at that time lived in Mexico. He was not living in the United States. Probably because I don't think he would have been well received by anybody here.
Definitely not.
So, that it was kind of coincidental that you brought it up, and at the same time, my classmate brought it up this morning. So,
a lot of stories, a lot of history.
Yeah.
Steve, I'll check out if you're getting ready to start with the Derbong guys. Again, don't give Jim Jockums, don't give him a kiss for me, but yeah, best hellos to that guy.
Well, there's nobody going to come here until the next session is supposed to be at 3. So it's another 45 minutes before they start showing up. If you want, or I'd like it if you stay around for at least about a half an hour until we start getting some more people in here.
Well, my earlier remark about one of the nuns at Thong Duck, Vay Nit Song. Boy, that guy was built like a prize fighter. And I got a kind of fond memory that, boy, he was damn good with a 60mm mortar. I wasn't on the operation, but somebody went out and sung with him. And of course, wasn't using aiming sticks or something, but boy, he was damn good. Another thing about Vay, he was a husky son of a gun. His partner, also, of course, a nun, a little more slender, but goddamn, they were fine people. And like you say, they were unofficial bodyguards. And they had a dog named Lucky. And boy, animals, say what you will, but Vietnamese, much less a Montagnard, ever came into our section of the camp. Boy, Lucky just, he barked like hell. Vietnamese didn't like it, but boy, he was our third bodyguard in effect.
Well, Vietnamese only looked at him as dinner.
Again, that camp, well, I say camp commander, the LLD commander, Trung Nguyen Zhu, TZU, he was a very damn fine officer. And later on, I had another very fine counterpart at Plaisirang in 69 and 70. But gosh, I wonder what happened to those two people. But
well, you can't find Vietnamese names in the United States. They're just impossible to identify. They change their name around in different ways. You can't look them up anyhow. There's one guy named Chu. His name was Chu Van Chu. He was a 2-corps commander, camp commander, 1964. And then he was up in I Corps later. I can't remember which camp he was at. And my understanding is that he did make it to the United States. And I really wanted to find him. And I looked very hard for him without success. But he had been the guy who was tied up to the flagpole at Bun Sapar during the Montagnard Revolt. And that the 2-corps B detachment commander in Pleiku, TDY, had gone there and untied him from the flagpole. I can't remember what the 2-corps commander's name, but he's the guy who was on the cover of National Geographic. And this Chu wrote him a letter absolutely thanking him for saving his ass. And when I was studying that, and I met the major's wife, she sent me all of his correspondence from that time frame. Very interesting stuff. He came in country as the new B detachment commander. He said he'd work with the SF commander in Korea, and he was looking forward to his tour. And he's all these nice things the first couple of months, and then starts going downhill. Now, these guys are total assholes. They don't know what they're doing, and so forth and so on. It really was interesting correspondence, but I wanted to find Chu without success. Another Vietnamese, I had been back in Vietnam from 69 to 71, I guess. And every once in a while, I go to MACV headquarters, and I would see this Vietnamese guy walking around MACV headquarters as an American Army lieutenant. I never stopped to talk to him. I was curious, but I never let that get hold of me. And Finally, last year, I started asking people, everybody I talked to, did you know anything about this Vietnamese lieutenant? And finally, I talked to Mike Taylor. And after a long conversation about something else, I asked him if he knew anything about this American Army lieutenant. And he said, yeah, he's the guy who taught me to speak Vietnamese in Vietnamese language school when I was back here at Fort Bragg.
Oh boy.
And I said, what's his name? So he turns around to his wife, who was Vietnamese, and she says, oh yeah, his name was such and such. So I had the name, and I went and I had somebody do a search on the Agent Orange database, and there he is with a social security number. He's a lieutenant in Vietnam. So he's identifiable. I tracked him down. I got his address. Every address he had, nobody knew who he was, where he was. He was not there. Everything is listed for him. And even the person who I'm pretty sure was his wife, I don't know him. I don't know him at all. And then I asked some Vietnamese to try to track him down. As near as I can tell, a couple of years ago, he went back to Vietnam and he lives in Vietnam now, which is really strange. If he was an American Army lieutenant, why is he now going back to Vietnam? But that's one of the few Vietnamese I was able to track down. And I was not able to actually find them. So.
Well, my counterpart at Plaisirang, he was originally from Saigon, electrical engineer before he went in the Army. I understood that his wife, his sister had married an agency fella. And I sure hope and prayed that because of that, maybe that connection, that he got out after the fall of Vietnam. Later on in the late 90s, my mother was living in Southern California, and there were several Vietnamese workers at this healthcare facility. And of course, Westminster is right up the street.
Mm-hmm.
They got me in contact with a predominant Vietnamese newspaper. I talked with an individual and I wrote up a short note that I was looking for. My counterpart was Lei Ki Lan. And I forget exactly how I wrote my note. I didn't really want to put in the paper that he was in the Vietnamese Special Forces. I didn't think that was a very good thing to do. So I forget how I worded it, but of course I put my name and address and phone number. Unfortunately, no, I never heard anything back from the fella, but boy, I don't know. It's just like this Afghanistan thing. I hate to think of the number of people that we let down, but damn it, it's a cross I'll have to bear.
Yeah, well, the same people who did Saigon were responsible for Afghanistan. So.
Exactly. Yep.
Hey Jim, when were you at Thong Duc?
I came in September of '66. I left in June of '67. When I came in, Chuck Stolga was the detachment commander. George Bedinger was a follow-on commander. I think Niles Pierce and Steve, I was interested to see those addresses, those names in your email. But John, when were you there?
I got there and I just July or August, I can't remember which, I was 67. And Pierce, the detachment commander, when I was there.
And had quite a big changeover in personnel. That spring, May, June. Geez, I can't remember the team sergeant's name, but And maybe it was a good thing that there was a big changeover in personnel. New faces, new ideas, new blood. What did you do, John? What were you working at?
I went out there as a medic. I was a special forces medic out there.
Who did you take over from?
Um,
Art Peters?
you know, I think there was a fella named Bischoff that was out there. I thought was a medic. Maybe I've got that confused. Anyway, Peters had been there, and I can't remember whether him and Bischoff got killed or one of them did, and the other one went back to the States.
Bischoff was killed with Barry Goodman, February or March
Yeah, I mean,
of 67. Art Peters, damn fine individual. Boy, this outstanding. Well, typical SF medic. He was living up in Alaska. Damn it, I found out he had passed on too. But yeah, both Art and Wolfram. Interesting thing about Wolfram Bischoff, he was killed around March of 67. If you go to the SF chapel at Fort Bragg, there's a small marker stone out in front of the chapel with names of people. I think they were primarily people that were killed during White Star. And you'll see a John Bischoff. That was Wolfram's older brother. He was killed in Laos around February or March of 57, 10 years earlier.
oh, shit.
No, it was later than that. He was killed, I think, when the captain was captured, Walter Moon.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Weir was the medic. He was the other medic. He was out there when I got there. I was a junior medic at that time.
I remember that name. I can't put a face on it. Darn it.
Yeah. He left shortly. I wasn't out there. I can't tell you how long because I don't remember. And then Lee Edwards, or Captain Edwards, became the detachment commander. And Weir left out the same time that Edwards came. So there was a big changeover. A lot of those fellas that were under Pierce, a lot of those guys rotated out. And so there was an influx of new people there over a period of about 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, Wolfram Bischoff, he was out on operation, and they, best I can understand, they walked into a command detonated 105 round, and they were still breathing. Brian Jenkins was on the chopper that went out to reaction. Both Barry and Wolfram, they were still breathing, but they were pretty much all gone from the waist down. But what Wolfram didn't know is when he came back to camp, he was going to be promoted to E7. And of course, he was promoted posthumously. But again, Steve, back to those magazines, I was able to send copies to his son, who lives, I think, still in Pennsylvania, showing the awards that his dad got and when he was KI. But Wolfram, boy, a very intense guy and outstanding guy in both as a medic and in the field. Outstanding.
Here's a list. What was your camp in 2 Corps? 245?
Plaisirang, what?
250, 251?
I think it was 251, yes.
Okay, and who was your counterpart?
Lay Key Lon.
Who's
I have Win Van Laan in 67. Uh,
Well, Lon, yep, for sure, last name. I thought Lake Key was,
in the Green Beret magazine, does 67 sound like the right time?
yep, okay.
All right,
Well,
in the Green Beret magazine, in the 67 magazine, 8, 36, and 37, there's an article which mentions his name. So you might want to look at your copy. That's 2, 8, 36, and 37.
And what publication, I mean, what month again?
8 August. All right, August 67, page 36 and 37.
Okay, 36, 37. Got it, thank you.
Now in I-Corps,
Break and go to the bathroom.
at 109, you mentioned
The one you were with, they're not gonna be.
Yep.
another-
Well,
it's
you got
too-
here DU, but I think it was pronounced ZU, but he was also a damn good officer.
Yeah.
And yeah, the XO, Tran V. I remember him.
Now he may have moved from another camp because I show up at A108, Tran Van C. So, you know, they were moved around. This is a very imperfect list. But as I get these, I start to digest the MOPSUMs, I'm going to start building up this list because it's all in there.
Well, very much appreciated.
So, yeah, here's Tran Van C over here at A109 in 67.
Yeah, again, that ZU, I don't care if 100 degrees, he always wore a flak jacket, no matter what.
That's what's gonna be on next.
So anyway, just a lot of stuff here. Yesterday, one of the people on here yesterday who probably come back this afternoon is a guy named John Mellon. And he was at A107 and he had a problem with his Vietnamese camp commander, who was actually a pretty bad guy, a really bad guy. And he reminded me that I had talked to him about it before. So I went back to look at the papers I had, and I found a statement that he had made in the US when he came back, which was a witness testimony on his counterpart. It was an affidavit on all the things that he did. And along with that were files from Vietnamese CIDG who were accusing the commander of, having ghost soldiers and even killing off some soldiers so they could continue to collect the pay.
Steve, what was your American, what was the officer's name again?
Bill Mellon.
Okay,
M-E-L-O-N.
can't place that one.
He should be back here for the afternoon session at 107. But if he hadn't reminded me by discussion, I wouldn't have thought about it. But I happen to have his affidavit in my papers.
Well, again, the guy that I replaced in Geovuk in January '66, he went back to the Mike Force and worked for Felix Villegas, who was the commander at that time. And yeah, the fellow I replaced, Will Wilson, he came out to Geovuk right after the ambush at Trebong. And he told me what had happened to John Fuel. And I'm not sure, he knew nothing about John Fuel at that time. John was still MIA. but the other two Americans, it was Reef Snyder and maybe, I forget who the other was, but one of the two other Americans, Will told me that the NVA had kind of propped them up against a rock and put a cigarette in their mouth. Of course, again, they're all dead, but yeah, they propped them up with a goddamn cigarette hanging out of their mouth, but damn it.
Well, it was Fuel.
Reef Snyder and somebody else.
Reef Snyder, Donald Jacobson. And Earl Brown. 4 of them.
4, okay. Yeah, Will Wilson, I also remember saying that the bad guys, I can't remember, I don't know if they're a VC or NVA, but they had laid out an ambush just right. They didn't spring the ambush until John and his people were outside of, I guess it was 81 range from their camp. As soon as they were out of that 81 range, yep, that's when the ambush was set up.
Well, that day, which was the 29th or 28th of January of 66, was the same day that Delta lost a whole bunch of people on White Wing, which is down in Binh Dinh province, just below I Corps. And up until the August 23rd date, when they hit the CCN headquarters, that was the worst single day loss that SF had ever encountered.
You're saying that date about John Fuel, I came in 6 January of 66. So damn it, John wasn't in country. He wasn't in 30 days. And
no,
doggone it.
He came in country around on the 7th of January. He was assigned to Trebon at that time.
Well, John's XO, when they came in, was a fellow by the name of Ray Morris.
Yeah.
They split the team. Ray became the XO down at Minlong. And Ray and I kind of followed each other around for about 12 years. We came back to the States and we both had, Ray and I, we both had AIT companies at Fort Dix. I went back to 5th Group. Ray went to the 46th in Thailand, right next door. We both came back, went to the same captain's career course. Then we were in Ranger School. I busted an elbow and had to get recycled. Ray and I both went to the 1st Group. I was in the 3 shop. He was the 2 next door. And geez, it was finally about 73. Yeah, we finally split up, but maintained contact. He lives down there in the Tampa area. Steve, I think Ray's got health challenges going on, but
hold on a minute. I'm going to disappear for a second here.
John, how did you like your time at Thong Duck? What do you remember?
Well, I remember Song that you were talking about and his dog for sure. And I do remember it was Daiwi Zoo at that time, Captain Zoo. And I thought he was a pretty good overall camp commander. I was operation where it was just me and him.
Out of there and come back. Huh? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna do this.
Boy, a lot of water under the bridge, John.
Yeah, I was also had a mobile company that we went to. It was like a Mike Force, only we were in Thong Duck and a part of the Thong Duck camp. but we pulled month-long operation up at Long Bay when they were building that camp.
Okay,
And we ran operations in there, TAOR. And we were on standby if someone else needed reinforced. And then in the meantime, we just were a part of the regular force at Thong Duck. So it was pretty active, and it was very active time when I was there, relative to what it had been before and then after. We lost a lot of people over there. There was 7 people that were killed over there. Leroy Hayes, did you remember him?
okay, now you're talking about Thong Duck, right?
Thong Duck, yeah.
John, when I left, again, we had gotten hit a couple of times while I was there, but nothing like you guys later on. Hayes, no, that does not ring a bell.
Okay, well, he might not have been there when you were there. You might have left before he got there. Anyway, he was killed in November of '67. And then there were 2 Mike Force guys. I think it was Dave Osborne and Von Kleist.
Von Kleist, I remember that name. Yeah.
Yeah, they were killed in that episode as well. And well, Osborne was killed outright, and Von Kleist died of wounds. And then Estel Spakes was killed on an ambush between Hill 52 and Thong Duck. And
Hill 52, yeah.
yeah, and then John Tompkins was killed in that ambush where Charlie Einot was shot up. In fact, I was on Hill 52 with Paul Hoffman and 13 CIDG, and we saw the smoke or the marking round hit when Sizemore, the fact pilot, fired smoke round in there. And I got on the radio, I called to Thong Duck, and circuit breaker had been ambushed, and they needed a reaction force immediately. And Paul and I took 6 CIDG and pre-swept the road for the reaction force from Hill 52 to the site of the ambush, which was about a mile. So that was a pretty intense day. And then I was in a place called Daijiang, or it's or Maihep, which was south and west of Thong Duck when England killed. He's still listed as missing, but I was trying to talk to him on the radio when he got killed. So yeah, it was a very active period of time, and we lost a lot of people killed and wounded.
When you were at Thong Duck, when I was there, they had an ARVN 105 battery. I guess it would have been on the east side of the camp, up towards the landing pad. We got a message one day, said, get up to that ARVN 105 and take charge of a recent ammunition supply they had received. Wasn't a hell of a lot else to it, but well, we did what we were told and went up there. What had happened was the Army had just come out with the 105 Beehive rounds.
Beehive, yeah, that's what I was thinking you were going to say.
And they somehow accidentally sent a batch to this ARVN 105, and they weren't supposed to have it yet. So did they have that kind of round when Thong Duck really started getting hit real hard?
Yes, yeah, we did.
Good.
And the protocol for that was we were supposed to grab those rounds and run them up to the 105 batteries. If they were breaking through the wire. And I always thought that was kind of stupid, because that would have been I don't know if we'd ever made it up there. But I didn't have anything to do with that, obviously, but That was just one of the, well, another thing, if I hadn't seen it, in real life, I would have thought I was in a goddamn cartoon character of the war. We needed to get resupplied by air. So they would airdrop in pallets of food, medical supplies, things like that, which makes sense. Well, we needed food resupply for our CIDG. What they did,
They Rolex the cow.
they airdropped in live pigs and fucking pumpkins. And when those pallets hit, the crates broke open. There was pumpkins flying through the air, pigs running around, going on the ground, the CIDG chasing them, and fucking mortar rounds coming down.
Oh, boy.
Right out of some acid movie. I don't know what you'd call it. But
I don't know about the pigs, but you know, at Tucor, they were Rolexing the cows.
oh shit.
A pallet would come out of the back of the C-130. He'd come down right over the runway. They pull the pallet would go out, and maybe the cow would not break his leg.
Oh God.
He was on a pallet. But if he broke his leg, he was hamburger the next day.
I bet he was.
I remember some pallet loads that we got up in Geovuk. I think the load master was just screwing with us, but of course, you got to put Nook bomb sauce on there. And they put those tins of Nook bomb, they put them right on the bottom. So when those pallets came in, of course, the Nook bomb went spraying everywhere. And
oh shit.
Of course, that stuff tasted good. It smelled like hell. You know that.
Oh yeah. Well, it's fermented fish oil, basically.
John,
how could something smell so bad taste so damn?
Exactly.
John, did you talk to Charlie Arnott about your role in his ambush?
He asked me to send him something. This has been several years ago. And I told him about Hoffman and I going up that road. With
he wrote a little article about it. And I don't know that it was ever published anywhere, but he had pulled in a lot of information from different people. Probably, I just don't remember everything was there. Probably what you said is in that article. But you may want to talk to him about it because it's a pretty good article.
Yeah, I've read his account, and he sent that to me, and then he asked for my input in about what my was.
Okay.
I remember when we first got there. Of course, that was a long, scary walk up that road. I want you to know. And we got there, and Kent, the interpreter, I heard him yelling, "Boxy, Boxy." And I saw him and ran over, and he was trying to motion me to get down. So I did. And then I saw where Yost and Einot were, and I went up to them. And as I told Charlie when we had our get together at Fort Bragg, I said, "You were the whitest Philip I ever saw," because he was shocky, going in shock. And they were wounded, but Beale was it was a mess. His arm was blown off, and he had flash burns and a gaping hole in his chest. Anyway, yeah, it was a mess.
Hank, welcome here.
Thanks, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. This is the last remnants of the A107 meeting we had earlier this morning. And Hank is coming in here for the A109 meeting this morning. Hank is coming in here for the A107 meeting this time.
Howdy, everybody.
Hey there. Happy New Year.
Same to you. Thanks.
Jim, do you know Hank?
Don't know as I do, sir. I was at I was at A103 until June of '66. You guys were right up the valley. When were you at Turbong?
I was there from August '67 to August '68.
Okay, all right.
Well, at various times you may have run into each other because Jim was around a lot of times, a lot of places.
Yeah. And then I went back over to Loperi to the Special Forces Advisory Team there for the Ranger Detachment. And we worked various places.
When you were with the Loperi people, either a Ray Morris or a Tom Metz, do those names
Yeah,
ring a bell?
yeah, I knew both of those guys. Yeah, both, last I heard, Metz was up on the northwest someplace. I don't know about Morris.
Metz was at the SF reunion in Las Vegas.
Oh, was he?
I guess it's last year. Jim, I just spoke to Brenda, and Ray has in the hospital, or came back from the hospital. He's not feeling well enough to get onto the show today. So
Steve, I'm not surprised, but I'm sorry. I appreciate that info. Damn it, I'm not surprised. Damn it. Yeah, Tom Metz, another very damn fine, and Ray Morris, both damn fine officers.
You bet they were.
well, Metz is looking healthy, really healthy.
Yes.
So
I don't look so good, but I'm having a beauty treatment, as you can tell by my gorgeous profile here.
I had last night.
Dermatology and I get along real well.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to check out. I want
Okay.
to thank you so very much for putting this on, man, and everything else you do. So
Very
y'all
good.
take care. Have a good one now. Have a good one, fellas.
Okay, take care.
Last night about 1 o'clock, I had a message that somebody had joined the meeting last night, which was nothing happening at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it turns out that Jack Lake from Australia has times messed up.
Oh, boy.
So I don't know if he's going to try to come back 15 hours later, but we'll find out shortly, I guess.
Is that, well, he was what, last I saw, Major Ray?
I don't know what his rank. He was a warrant officer at the time he was there.
Oh, okay. There was a Major Ray when I
No,
left.
no, that's Lake. L-A-K-E is the guy I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And, you know, he is the last of the Australians that was at Trabant that I was able to locate. Everybody else is either dead or lost. You know, scarred, and they don't know where he is. And a couple other people around, but as far as I know, I couldn't find anyone else. And the other Australians I know, Barry Rust, he didn't have much to add, and what's his name, Ryan, Bruce Davies had passed away earlier. So I think the Australians, for the most part, were a bit older than we were.
Yeah, they were.
As a
Quite
result,
a bit. About 10 years older than I remember.
Yeah, they gone off without us. Earl, welcome back.
Yes. Steve, I'm gonna check out, let you talk with the Dervon guys. Hey, it's sure good to see you all. And hey, fortunately, we're all still on the right side of the grass. And boy, a lot of very good but somber memories. But hey, best wishes to all of you. Safe travels. Adios.
Yeah, same to you. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. I am going to shut off the recording over here and then turn it back on again so I